gun or 240 Golf, which is a large machine gun. But yeah, all the time. And that was another thing, you know. I wasn't, not that there's anything wrong with it, but I wasn't guarding a dignitary in a safe zone or working refueling helicopters or, you know, whatever, working on radios back in the rear. I was on the front line, Marine Corps infantry with heavy guns. And so that's, you know, my parents were like, you know, a little worried about that, I think.
What was your favorite part if you had one?
Oh, I think just being over there, and knowing that, you know, I was a United States Marine. I signed up when I was a junior in high school. I knew I wanted to be a Marine. And to go over there and be a United States Marine fighting for your country on the front lines, it's a pretty darn proud thing. CNN was over there, Fox News, all these places trying to interview us and stuff, but we didn't talk to the cameras. But just knowing that, you know what, people back at home are watching, and knowing that, hey, I got a relative over there, he's a Marine Corps infantryman. That was my favorite thing. I think I was serving my country.
What inspired you to join?
You know, I wanted the challenge, I think, because 9/11 hadn't happened yet. I joined before 9/11. 9/11 happened, I was in an airplane out to the School of Infantry when 9/11 happened. And they grounded my flight in Kansas. And I spent 2 nights in an airport, sleeping on the floor of the airport because no one knew what was going on. Red Cross fed us cheeseburgers. They flew us down to Phoenix, Arizona. I slept another night in an airport, and then they flew us to San Diego. And but when I joined the Marine Corps, none of that had happened yet. I just wanted to serve the country. I wanted to be a Marine. When I was a little kid, I was standing in line with my twin brother at McDonald's, and these guys come in with these leather coats, and it said "Death from Above" and "Death Before Dishonor" and all this other stuff. And I looked at them like, God, those guys are the coolest guys I've ever seen in my life. And it said USMC on them. I just never forgot that. That just stuck in my mind, and I'm like, I want to be a Marine. And wasn't even a choice. My mom and dad co-signed for me when I was 17. So to be over in Iraq, after going through that, that's why, you know, it's a proud moment when you're over there.
Was anyone in your family in the military?
Some grandpa and some great uncles and stuff, a cousin, but my dad wasn't, my brothers weren't. And you know, that can also be a reason why it's hard to transition sometimes, because, you know, if your dad and brothers or sisters or mom or whether never in the military, they don't know how it is to go over to Iraq. They don't know how it is to go through boot camp. They don't know how it is to maybe see people die in combat. So when you come home and you have friends, like most of my friends are never in the military, so I don't have a lot of common ground with them when you're talking about Iraq. They want to talk about the political issues. They want to talk about the money that we spend over there. They want to talk about the veterans, you know, coming back and getting free college. But they were never over in Iraq. Me going over to Iraq and seeing all that, I have a totally different perspective than what they have.
Would you recommend going back?
I would recommend serving in the military. I would recommend going over to a war zone if you have to and being proud about it. I think that sometimes people are guilted into thinking that they shouldn't be proud about it. You know, I went to Iraq in 2004. I don't know if you guys follow the news too much or whatever, but they've basically taken over Iraq again. Ramadi, Fallujah, Baghdad, they've all taken it back, insurgents. So it's real easy for me to get back into like a slump and say, man, everything we did over there, they took it all back. I mean, it's not U.S. controlled anymore. The Iraqis aren't in control of it, insurgents are. So all the hard work that the Marines went over there and captured Fallujah, captured Tikrit, and captured Baghdad, captured all these places, and then we left, and the insurgents captured them right back. So what did we really accomplish over there? Well, I don't try to get myself falling in that category, because then it's real easy to say, well, we didn't accomplish anything. Why did I even go over there? I don't know, it's a waste of my time. I don't think about that. Vietnam, we didn't win the Vietnam War in essence when you think about, oh, having a big victory parade and everything. But you don't think about that. You went over there 3 times, you did your job, you were asked to do it, you did it, came back, served with honor, end the story, period. And that's how I do it. I went over to Iraq, I didn't have a choice, they made me go over there, I went over there, I served with honor, I made it back, period. If Iraq blows up tomorrow, or we never recapture Iraq, or it's genocide over there after I get home, it's not okay, but hey, on my watch, I did everything I could over there. So that's how I sleep at night. But a lot of people try to get that in their mind that, man, I didn't really accomplish anything, because now look at it. And it's a slippery slope, because you'll start downplaying what you really did over there.
Did you have any close friends in Iraq?
I did, and I still talk to them today. You know, some of the greatest friendships are forged over there, where, you know, you're all just brothers over there. It's a band of brothers. You know, you go through combat with somebody, and you just have a forged friendship that, you know, maybe a state football team has, or maybe, I don't know, maybe cops that maybe they go through a critical incident, maybe they have together, or something like that, or, you know, it's a friendship that is forged, not really made, but it's forged together. I'll tell you something else. In Iraq, you know, it's easy for everyone to think that, you know, they're all terrorists over there. Everyone in Iraq and everyone in Afghanistan are terrorists, because 9/11, right? So if you're Islamic, or you wear a burqa, or you don't believe everything the United States does, you read from the Quran, you're a terrorist. So it's really easy, because when you go to Iraq, anyone that's over there that's not American is bad. No, that's not right. But that's what people think. Well, when you're actually over in Iraq, you go over there and you start seeing these people, and you're like, wow, that's not really true, because there's kids over there. And the kids didn't choose to be terrorists. The kids aren't terrorists. The kids were born in 2000. They're 4 or 5 years old, and they know nothing but a war zone. It's not their fault. You have parents over there, adults over there, that if they had it their way, they would just farm, and they like America. They wish so bad they could come over to America, so not everyone's bad. But then you come home and everyone's like, oh yeah, Iraq, you're Iraq, how many terrorists did you kill? Well, it's not about the amount of terrorists you kill. It's about seeing that, wow, there's some good people in Iraq, there's some good people in Afghanistan. It's confusing, because you go over there to fight all the bad guys, but you find out that the bad guys are in the minority and the good people are in the majority. And it's very tough to try to remember that you go to Iraq and not everyone's bad over there. Not everything that happened was bad. I had my mom send over like 50 hats, just ball caps, for these kids over there. These kids didn't have a choice. These kids don't want helicopters to be flying over. They don't want to get their neighborhood mortared. They didn't go to school because their school got bombed. Those kids don't have a choice. Those kids don't hate America. Those kids are just confused. Those kids' dad might have joined the Al-Qaeda or whatever, but they're not necessarily evil to their core. So it's confusing over there, and it can get very confusing. And if you ever have to make a decision, and you know, what your actions end up killing some innocent people or kill some people that maybe aren't terrorists, you come home and you got to live with that, and all those kind of decisions and all those kind of dynamics. When you come home, that's why, again, the transition. You hear people talking, oh yeah, you're over there fighting Hajis, huh, in Iraq, you're killing terrorists, and you're like, that kid has no idea what he's talking about, because he was never over there. Not everyone's like that. I met some kids that I'll never forget. Unfortunately, 2015, these kids are probably 16, 17 years old. Hey, you know what? They might be freedom fighters now for Al-Qaeda, and it is what it is. But when I knew them, they were just these little kids, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. You give them $1, they buy you a bunch of food. You know, they just want to drink water, a bottle of water, or a bottle of Fanta. They think it's the coolest thing in the world. So it can be very confusing for someone going over there and then coming back and hearing, you know, everyone over there is bad, because they're really not. And PTSD isn't just, you know, when people think about PTSD, they think about someone that's in a wheelchair with both legs blown off and one arm blown off and scars on his face, and you're like, wow, that guy probably has PTSD. Well, those are the easy examples. The harder ones are the people who are just quiet and don't really talk about it. And those are the ones that maybe just have it pent up, and those are the ones that maybe have some depression. But I would say everyone has a twinge, at least a little fraction, a little element of PTSD. How far that it gets exposed, you know. But people can get it even if they didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan or Vietnam or Korea. I have a friend that's a firefighter, and he went to a call where a little baby got killed by a dog, and it was very, very tough for him. Very tough for him to do his job. And he's a great paramedic. He was working down in St. Louis. He has given birth alongside the road to 13-year-old girls while his ambulance is getting shot at by the gangs. I mean, he has seen a lot of stuff as a paramedic. But out of everything he saw, that little kid that got mauled by the dog and died, he has never gotten over that. He doesn't talk about it. He took a couple days off work, and he sold his dog because he has a young kid. And every time he saw his young kid and saw the dog, he just couldn't quite get that picture out of his mind. He sold his dog, and he will never have a dog again around his kids. That is PTSD, whether he wants to admit that or not, but he's not going to necessarily talk about it. He doesn't wear a sticker that says, "Hey, ask me some questions about PTSD because I got it." He keeps his pretty buried, but he has it. He didn't go to Iraq or Afghanistan, but he saw stuff. As a cop, sometimes you don't think as a cop that you're going to see much. You're going to give out some speeding tickets, eat some donuts, drink some coffee, and that's what cops do, eat a lot of donuts and stuff like that. But you know what? You get called to that bad accident, 2 cars flipped over, infants in the seat, and mom's dead in the front seat, and you got to climb in there and get that little kid out. You didn't sign up to do that. You've never done that. You weren't in combat. You didn't sign up necessarily to see dead bodies, but you do. You might have a little element of PTSD. Now, some people dwell on that, and they never really get over it. And they go home, and they're quiet at the house, and their kids see a big difference between dad before, dad after, mom before, mom after. And some people just kind of roll with it. I've seen a lot of dead bodies. I've seen a lot of hard situations, but it's just kind of built my character, and I can see that and go on. My older brother, he gets a flu shot, he passes out. He's never really seen a dead body, and if he did, he probably wouldn't do very well with it. He'd probably never forget it. So I would make the argument that you don't have to go over to a war zone to have PTSD or to have the symptoms. And some of the people with the worst PTSD, you never know it. But the kids and the wives usually know it, or the dads, the husbands, or whatever, because it does change you. If you can't get the war zone out of your mind, I have a good friend. He posts on Facebook about once every 3 or 4 weeks a really disparaging comment, and I always call him or text him. And I'm sure his kids will grow up seeing that dad just reacts differently. Maybe he yells a little bit too much, or maybe he, if your parents like, "It's not a big deal, Dad." It is a big deal, because I'm sure some things to him will be a big deal and they're probably not, because he still has definitely bad PTSD. He's ready to admit it. He takes some counseling, but I'm sure his kids are definitely going to grow up knowing that, hey, my dad had PTSD. They're going to know it. Some kids, they might never even know that. Back in the 50s and 40s, he came back from World War II. They didn't have PTSD. They didn't study PTSD. PTSD was, your dad's weak because he came back from the war and he can't handle it. Well, no, he has PTSD probably, but they didn't diagnose it back then. So it's been around forever, but now we're just finally getting the awareness of what's going on. So, more questions? It's hard for kids to understand their parents if they have a parent with PTSD because it's not always really just out in the open. And sometimes kids hear stories and stuff and they're like, "Wow, that sounds like my dad. Wow, that sounds like my dad." Sometimes people don't even know that their dad went over to Iraq because your dad doesn't talk about it. Or your grandpa dies and you just figure out that he was on Iwo Jima or he was in Korea because he never talked about it. I had a great uncle who he signed up to be in the military to be a heavy equipment operator, drive big trucks. Well, they went over to Iwo Jima during World War II, and the trucks got stuck in the sand. And they said, well, these trucks aren't going to work on this big heavy sand, so everyone just get out of your trucks, you're no longer a truck driver. And they gave them a flamethrower. And they said, now your job is to be a flamethrower. And when you ever see a hole that the Japanese are in, flamethrow in the hole and kill all the Japs that are in the hole. You think he signed up to do that? You think he wanted to do that? He's a farm kid from southern Illinois. But that was his job now. And then you know what? One day when he was flamethrowing the hole and killing the Japs, he said, "Hey, stop. The war's over. Go back home." Okay, take that off. Go back home. And then he started